Hey everybody, Steve Clark here with thepropsnetwork.com, and today I'm joined by entertainment expert Scott Yager to talk about Oscars betting. Scott, how you doing, man?
Good, man. We're in the home stretch.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, a lot of things have changed, especially in the last couple of weeks with all these award shows happening. Are these odds that we're seeing now going into Sunday pretty much locked up? Is anything really going to change in the next few days?
So there's two reasons that odds move. It's when a predictive source changes, so another award show, the results are released, and then the other thing is just betting swings. This is probably the week that's going to have the most betting taking place. So what you will see is the odds changing based on, say, X amount of people, betting on this favorite or betting on this underdog and a little bit of a swing there. Of course, if some big money bettor comes in, all it can take is one bet to swing something by a few points. But all of the other award shows are behind us. Last weekend, we had a couple big ones that really swung some of these races, the Writers Guild Awards and the BAFTAs. We'll talk about some of these races and how they've changed. But this week, look for some slight alterations in the form of, say, a Parasite for Best Picture. Early in this week, it was plus 400. It's now plus 300. As bets start to come in on Parasite, it could get as low as plus 200. I don't see it going the other way because, again, it's not like 1917 is going to rack up any more wins between now and Sunday. So what you might see is some of the newer favorites become larger favorites this week as people start to pile in on them. And you might see maybe some of the dogs becoming less than heavy dogs this week when people start to say, oh, I can maybe make some money on Parasite by Sunday. You're making a little bit less money.
So let's go ahead and talk about Best Picture. As you said, Parasite moved up to plus 300. 1917 is still the favorite at minus 200. Do you see a lot of people going with Parasite after what happened at the award shows the last couple weeks, or do you see it staying roughly around here?
I mean, look, it's always the more fun thing to do to bet on the underdog, right? I mean, there's really nothing fun about betting on a favorite, especially one that was as heavy as 1917 was up until recently. That being said, though, if you're someone who thinks 1917 is still going to stick the landing and pull this one out, this is probably the best time to get that bet in. I would probably wait, let the money keep coming in on Parasite, take 1917 closer to Sunday. I, however, am on the Parasite side of things. As much as 1917 has won where it's needed to win and the PGA Awards and then this past Sunday at the BAFTAs, that was sort of expected for me. Parasite picked up the Writers Guild Award. It picked up the BAFTA for Screenplay Award, and it also a couple weeks ago won that editing award. So I do think there's still a path for Parasite, and I think that's the fun play here. And I think a lot of people are going to agree with me, whether they do so because they think it's a nice opportunity to make some cash or because they have fun rooting for that movie that they love. I do think Parasite's odds are going to lessen and lessen as the week goes by. So if you do like that Parasite play, take it now. I remember when we spoke a couple weeks ago, it was 5-1. Then
Right.
it went to 4-1. Now it's at 3-1. So by the weekend, I wouldn't be surprised if it was 2.5, maybe 2-1. Because that is, I think, where some of the money is going to be coming in. As far as some of those other films, it's looking less and less likely that any of them are going to come in and upset either one of those movies. So I'm not advising that you take any other movies in the Best Picture race other than Parasite or 1917. When it comes to those Oscar pools, which I know a lot of people are interested in, of course, if you're in a state where you can't legally gamble on the Oscars, but you are going to a party, you do want to beat your Aunt Karen, win those concert tickets or whatever you guys are playing for. It's an interesting two-dog race. I would not veer away from either one of those movies, but whatever the favorite is going into Sunday, it's interesting because I really do think it is a two-movie race. I think a lot of people might look at what the favorite is and see it as 1917 and pick that in your pool. So especially if you're not risking anything other than a point or so in an Oscars pool, I think Parasite's a really strong play there.
Awesome. For Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, all these acting categories, they've been pretty much set in stone for the last month or so. So as far as betting goes, you should probably stay away from these, correct?
Nothing's changed whatsoever. No one has even cracked into that race a little bit on all four accounts. It's Brad Pitt, Laura Dern, Renee Zellweger, and Joaquin Phoenix all the way. You got to check all those boxes in your pools. When it comes to the betting, I'm not telling you to bet on anyone. If for some reason you have some sort of a free play that you have to use on one of those categories, I'm leaning more towards a Renee Zellweger upset in the form of, say, hey, not that many people love the movie Judy. Maybe not that many people ended up seeing it. Or maybe in Best Supporting Actress, where voting for, say, anointing the new female star in Margot Robbie or even Florence Pugh seems a little bit more exciting than the journeyman actress in Laura Dern. That being said, I think the odds are long, and you're probably not even getting good enough odds at a Margot Robbie or Florence Pugh, who I think are at about 12-1 and 14-1 respectively. That should almost be a 30-1 or something like that. So that might tell you a little bit when you look at those odds. So maybe that's the one, but I wouldn't even get cute. But if, gun to my head, come next Monday, if you say, Scott, there was an upset in the acting categories, where was it? I would say maybe it's Margot or Florence Pugh in supporting actress, or maybe a Saoirse Ronan or a Charlize Theron in the best actress category.
Moving on to best director now. Sam Mendes really took a big leap here, minus 670 as the favorite now. Bong Joon-ho is plus 375. Do you see Sam Mendes pretty much winning this out? Like, is this pretty much a given, or is there still some play for Bong Joon-ho?
A couple things have taken place since we last spoke, and it's that the DGA Awards, of course, happened. Sam Mendes won there. Sam Mendes won again at the BAFTAs. The other thing that happened that I think actually works in Sam Mendes' favor here is we've started to see Bong Joon-ho win these Screenplay Awards. So it's one of those things where I think they figured out how to honor both of these guys. They're both writer-directors in the sense. Sam Mendes, I forget if he's getting full screenwriting credit, but I know it was sort of his idea. He's behind the story of 1917. So he clearly is getting awarded for the direction of this film. This is a very direction-forward, cinematography-forward project here, and I think that's the way this movie is going to get honored. Whether it takes Best Picture or not, I think he becomes the lock for Best Director, similar to how last year Alfonso Cuarón was sort of the lock to win Best Director, whereas Roma was up in the air for Best Picture. When it came down to it, the voters ended up going with the movie I think they enjoyed a little bit more in Green Book, while kind of, taking solace in, hey, we gave Cuarón director, he deserves that for the feat of achievement, of cinematic achievement that Roma was. I think it's sort of flipped here. The international film Parasite is the sort of more enjoyable, beloved movie, and I think that Bong Joon-ho, whether he takes Best Picture, has a really good shot at holding up that screenplay trophy, and that, I think, has worsened his odds at Best Director now. I think now that there's different ways to get Bong Joon-ho on stage other than foreign film, really cements Sam Mendes as having that director's trophy on Sunday. So I'm not leaning. I'm not getting cute with Best Director. I'm taking Sam Mendes in the pools. And if you do want to bet it, 6-1 favorite is not a great thing to bet on. But if you want to bet it, I think it's pretty safe.
So a category that we talked about a couple weeks ago that seemed like there was a huge favorite and that might take the whole thing was Best Animated Feature Film with Toy Story 4. I think they were minus 500 just a week or so ago.
And I think it might have even been minus 1,000, actually.
You're probably right. Now they're only minus 134. And Claws is also minus 106. So it seems like this is really a toss-up at this point. Who do you think is going to take it in Best Animated Feature?
So what's so funny is even a few weeks ago when we spoke, I kind of smelled this coming. I didn't necessarily have the right underdog in mind. What had happened up until that point was we did have The Missing Link win the Golden Globe Award, and I remember hearing a lot of people saying that the movie, All Right, I Lost My Body, I thought maybe one of them could be the upset, and they were at about 10-1. Claws, I think, was somewhere in that range at that point as well, but hadn't really been talked about. It since then has picked up an award over Toy Story at the Animation Awards and at the BAFTAs. So that's become pretty much a co-favorite here along with Toy Story. Now, what's interesting here is you tell somebody, it's like, a couple weeks ago, I hated Toy Story as a 10-1 favorite. Now that they're minus 134, you're telling me I can take Toy Story at minus 134 to win Best Animation on a Disney movie at the Oscars in a kind of a down year for animated movies. I honestly think Toy Story might be a fun play here. I do, if I had to pick and in the pools, I'm going Claws here, but I think it's a toss-up, and it's one of those things where the reason Toy Story was a favorite was because animated movies are not something that everybody watches, but a lot of people do watch Toy Story. That movie did make a lot of money. A lot of people have seen it. Now, Claws is on Netflix. It's easy for people to see, easier to see than a lot of these other films. And I'm not saying the voters don't watch everything. I'm sure they all do their best to. But when it comes down to it, I would not be surprised if Toy Story was the winner on Sunday. And to get them at minus 134 when just a couple weeks ago it was minus 1,000, I think that's worth a bet. Now, the stats show that Claws has some momentum here. It is kind of a throwback when it comes to the type of animation used in the movie, and I think maybe we're kind of in a refractory period. Maybe we're a little tired of the Toy Story and Frozen look and the Cars look that's taken over this category in recent years. So maybe that's why people are voting that way. Maybe it just is the better movie. Maybe people think it's ridiculous to give an Oscar to the fourth installment of a franchise in Toy Story 4. For whatever reason, though, this has become a two-dog race when last week it seemed like it was a check the box of Toy Story. So I think it's a great place to pick up a point in the pool. I think that a lot of people in your pool, probably because they're uneducated, will still be picking Toy Story. So I think Claws might be the play in the pool because it's still technically that underdog, and I think you'll probably beat out more people if it wins. But hey, if you're telling me I want to throw $100 on Toy Story at minus 134, I'm not mad at you.
Moving on now to Best Adapted Screenplay. There was another huge shift here from just a week or two ago. Jojo Rabbit is now the favorite at minus 230. Little Women now at plus 150. What happened here to cause this shift?
Two things happened. Very simple. Jojo Rabbit won the Writers Guild Award for Best Adapted Screenplay, and it also won the BAFTA Award for Best Adapted Screenplay. In both of those categories, it was directly competing with Little Women. So it's as simple as, hey, these are the two most recent, kind of indicators that we have of where people are voting for this category. And it seems like Taika Waititi and that movie is going to be the one that's honored on Sunday. The odds have flipped accordingly. Now, it's one of those things where when you look at these two movies on paper, the whole way it kind of, jumps out at you as being the movie that's the more showier screenplay. Of course, they're both based on source material, but Little Women is based on some really classically, redone several times source material, Little Women. And although Greta Gerwig put her spin on it, it is sort of, old faithful. Taika Waititi adapted this little read or known book or short story or whatever it is and completely put his own spin on it. Of course, it's a very, polarizing movie, but it's certainly very ambitious. It's very funny. So on paper, it almost seems like the one that would have won. The reason the whole time I was staring at Greta Gerwig as a likely win here is that narrative that's been going on all through award season about females being, underrepresented here at the Oscars, about no female directors nominated. Of course, Greta would have been a candidate for that. And thinking of this as a way to honor Greta and that movie and have a woman on stage accepting an Oscar. It's going to look great. It's going to feel great for all of us. That hasn't changed for me. Although I have seen these two precursor, awards go to Taika Waititi in the odd shift, it almost makes Little Women a more attractive play here if you're going to bet it. So I'm going with Little Women, and I'm probably wrong to do so because the evidence shows Jojo Rabbit, it shows Taika Waititi, and this is probably the only way that movie gets honored on Sunday. But I think the Oscars and the Academy have more of a chip on their shoulder when it comes to this female representation thing than, say, the BAFTAs or, say, the Writers Guild. And I do think that some of these Academy voters might vote with their heart a little bit more, and they might vote for Little Women and Greta Gerwig over Taika Waititi and Jojo Rabbit because of that. That's something that I think is very singular to the Oscars, that some of these other guilds might not feel that level of responsibility. So everything I said a couple of weeks ago maintains. You're getting better odds on Little Women now. I'm still taking it. I'm still taking it in the pools because you're going to pick up a point on all these people who are now going to take Jojo Rabbit. Look, Jojo Rabbit, as the odds show, is the likely favorite, but I'm still feeling good about Little Women because a lot of the reasons I thought of it before as a likely winner, those haven't changed. Those are almost intangible. So that's just my thoughts on that.
For Best Original Screenplay, there's a little bit of a shift there, too. Parasite is now the big favorite at minus 230. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood coming in at plus 130. As we all know, Quentin Tarantino, not a part of the WGA. The WGA Awards just happened. So is that why Parasite jumped into the favorite like this?
Well, it's two things. One, yes, the Writers Guild Award, but then also the next day it also won the BAFTA Award for Best Original Screenplay, and Quentin was up for that. So that was sort of kind of cementing Parasite as this real contender directly against Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, not just second best that's going to win when Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is ineligible. I think what it also does is, look, Oscars ballots just closed yesterday. There might be some people who vote for screenplay based on who the writers picked. Some people don't, do their due diligence and actually know that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood wasn't eligible. Or do they have the imagination to think of whether it would win if it was eligible? They just see now that the two screenplays that the writers thought were best are Jojo Rabbit and Parasite. If those are movies they already like to begin with, great. That's sort of the solidification I needed to check that box on my ballot. I also think that screenplay, which is something that we had kind of saw was in the cards for Parasite, but now seems like it might be a real possibility, might be that pathway to that Best Picture win. When you look at a movie like Parasite that went on to win the SAG Award but is nominated for no acting awards, you think, how is this film that's definitely going to win foreign film going to win Best Picture if it can't win an acting award? It's not going to win director. What can it do? Well, it can win editing, which we've talked about, and now it can win screenplay. Screenplay is an award that a lot of Best Pictures go on to win. It's also an award that a lot of non-Best Pictures go on to win. Your Get Outs of the world and all those Quentin Tarantino movies that he won the Screenplay Award for and not Best Picture. So it can go either way, but I do think it's flipped. And unfortunately, as much as I love Quentin Tarantino and I would equally love to see him hold that Oscar on Sunday, I'm going Parasite here because this is sort of part of my Parasite train that I think is going to keep pushing forward to a Best Picture win. Obviously, the odds aren't great for Parasite now as far as the bet goes, so I wouldn't place the bet. I think it's close there. I think they're both co-favorites. If you do want to take Hollywood now, the odds are kind of fun to take that. In the pool, though, I'm going Parasite.
Another category that we've seen a lot of changes in is Best Documentary Feature. American Factory used to be a huge favorite. Now they're only minus 250. For Sama, plus 150 at the number 2 spot. What changed here?
Well, easy. For Sama has picked up some awards, including the BAFTA Award on Sunday. What I like about this is similar to what I said about Toy Story. Now you have this movie, American Factory, that a lot of people thought was going to bulldoze in here, just like Toy Story 4, and it started as a 10-1 favorite. Now you can get that at minus 250. So look, you want to play American Factory? I think it's a nice move, especially if you really like that movie. For the pools, though, I think For Sama really has a chance. I still, in a weird way, as a long shot bet, one of my favorite ones on the board, if you're telling me, hey, I like to play a couple things that are 10-1 or better, give me something fun. I like that Honeyland is up for Best Documentary and Foreign Film. I think some voters might give that some merit. The idea that this movie, hey, stands alone as a foreign film and as a documentary. Now, granted, the foreign film of it all might stand in the way of people watching it, but it's also available on Hulu. And I think it's possible. 10-1 are great odds to get if you want to throw $10 on it or something like that. But for Sama, really coming in here as a co-favorite along with American Factory. And this is a live race as well, one that was kind of just thrown away a few weeks ago. So a lot of fun things down the stretch. The acting awards are chalk across the board, but in a lot of these awards, the screenplay awards, as well as documentary, animation, even some of the lower end, I don't want to say lower end, but below the line kind of stuff, like the production design, costume design, those are live as well. Both sound categories, I think, can go either way. 1917's in play in both of those, as is Ford versus Ferrari. And hey, editing we talked about. Ford versus Ferrari ended up winning that at the BAFTA Awards. We talked about the Ace Eddie went to Parasite. So that's a 2-movie race too. Visual effects was just won by 1917, which has now been catapulted into the favorite slot for visual effects. That wasn't even in the top 2 before. It was Avengers Endgame and then The Irishman. The Irishman has segued back into a third place role there. And I have this weird feeling that we're going to be saying on Monday, how crazy is it that The Irishman, this movie that people came out of, and the first thing they said were how terrible the visual effects are, is going to be holding that trophy for best visual effects. I just, for some reason, think, for some reason, I have a weird feeling about it. So now the odds are even longer to play that. In the pool, though, I do think it might be smarter to pick up 1917 just so they start racking up those awards. And even recently, a movie like First Man that doesn't necessarily have jump-at-you visual effects the way that Star Wars or Endgame might, it ended up winning because I think it would say the best movie on the ballot. And 1917, of course, is probably the best movie on the ballot, sort of The Irishman as well. So I think that is a fun long play as well. So really fun stuff to do on these ballots. Of course, everyone's doing them for their parties and stuff like that. Everyone's putting in those bets, but look, if you're trying to bet a Parasite, I would get it in early. I think those are the things that are going to move between now and Sunday. But all the big moves are probably behind us. These are probably going to be moving by about minus or plus 50 every day or so now, depending on what money comes in. But a lot of fun to have. Look, you're not going to win any money on Brad Pitt or Joaquin Phoenix, but if you're willing to bet on editing and animation and stuff like that, there's some cool stuff to take into account here.
Awesome. Great information, Scott. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Make sure to stay tuned here at the Props Network and to check out thepropsnetwork.com for all the latest betting news and the best bonuses from all the top legal betting sites.